Thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. Um, Apologies for the slightly late start. Um, what would a NAM show be without a couple of technical difficulties? Greetings to you. I'm broadcasting from my home studio here in Santa Monica, California. Um, this is pretty much where I do everything, just like your home studios or second bedrooms are where most of you are doing most things related to music or business. Well, let's get down to the business of making some music. And the reason we are here is to announce and to celebrate the introduction of a new snare drum. We're calling it the Jazz Snare Drum. It's a signature snare drum that the good folks at Tama Drums have developed with me. We've been working on this for over a year, and I couldn't be happier. It's so much fun to play, and I'm going to play it for you now. I'll turn off my voice mic. I'll play a short tune, and then we will get into the specifics about the drum, okay? I hope you enjoy this. A one, two, a one, two. That was fun. Hey, thank you. That was Bob Mintzer's tune called Home Basie. Um, Bob's kind of fantasy if Basie had done a kind of a funk chart. And boy, I sure had a great drum set and a snare drum to play that, uh, but to the snare drum. It is called the Jazz Snare, and you may be wondering, with everything else going on in the world right now, do we really need another snare drum? I submit that the answer is yes. Um, well, I needed another snare drum. I'm reminded always of that cartoon where the wife comes home and there are flowers everywhere, just wonderful dozens of roses, bouquets, and her first thought about her loving husband is, oh no, he's bought another snare drum. Um, and snare drums are the one part of our kit that we keep, adding onto that. And I've always liked a shallower depth snare drum, the immediacy of the response, the sensitivity, the ability of that drum to not only go everywhere I wanted to, but to lead me to some unexpected places. I just seem to have a better rapport and better musical luck with a more shallow drum. The idea is not new, it's not original. There was a Max Roach snare drum, and I came across one of those years ago in New York City, measuring 4 inches deep by 14 inches in diameter, and that became one of my favorite drums. The very first, if you don't mind my going into a bit more history, the very first signature snare drum that the Yamaha drum company ever made was, in fact, a drum that I had asked them to make, and it was a 4x14 drum made of birch, and it was a limited edition. They only made 700 or so. And that kind of established the viability of the signature drum line for that company. So I've been itching to get another snare drum out. But we decided to go a little bit deeper with this drum. And I had a lot of help designing this, not only the incredible engineers at Hoshino Gaki Tama Drums in Japan, and Sam Gample, the artist rep, who is very knowledgeable about drums, and he was very helpful. But my good friend Bill Platt, recently retired from 40 years of service to the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra as their principal percussionist and snare drummer, and a colleague professor of mine, Aron Serfati, who seems just to have more knowledge about drums than anyone else I've met. Now, Bill was already working with Tama, providing a lot of expert advice and opinion about their concert snare drum. So he was a natural for me to turn to with this drum. And we incorporated some wish list items from a number of drummers. And the folks at Tama were good sports to let me try out a number of these different design concepts. Now, to make sure I don't miss anything, number one, let me just hold the drum up for you a bit, and I'll get back to playing some more of it. This is the snare drum. It's spruce with a gloss finish. It's 4.5 inches in depth, 14 inches in diameter, of course. It has my favorite throw off. It has the Sound Arc hoops, which in the old days I think we used to call them stick savers. So the drum has a vintage look and feel, and just holding it, it feels like wow, I just came across an incredible vintage snare drum. So it's a 6mm thick shell, 4-ply spruce with 2 inner plies of maple, and the sound focus ring, which is on the batter side only, is the same configuration: 6mm, 4-ply spruce, and 2 inner ply of maple. Why spruce? Why maple? Um, a year or two ago, well, more than a year, or a couple of years ago, I think I came across the first spruce drums that Tama made, and I was just knocked out, and that became the kind of my go-to kit if I didn't have access to my Star drum set, and they were just a delight to work with. I love the sound, and cost was a bit of an issue. Um, I do have a 6.5 by 10 inch specialty snare drum, stave construction, and that was kind of like money's no object, and it's a beautiful drum. It's an expensive drum. My goal with this drum, I said, I want this to get in the hands of as many drummers as possible. So spruce was a good choice, but maple gives it that extra bit of bite and strength and sparkle with the sound. Um, the bearing edges, I was going to say bear in mind, are identical to Star drums. And in fact, the drum is made in Japan at the Star factory, which is kind of a mind blower for me. We're using the Star tube lugs. It's the heavier hoop that Tama offers, 2.3 millimeter, and again, they call it the Sound Arc hoop. With 8 holes, we decided to go 8 lug as opposed to 10. This allows a little more of the lower fundamental to sound on the drum, and this helps compensate a little bit for the relatively more shallow depth. Part of the reason we went 4.5 inches was to accommodate this strainer, because I like this strainer so much, and much more than the one that kind of snaps down and up, because that's noisy. And a lot of times when I'm playing brushes, I want to be able to just, finesse that on during a ballad. The strainer and the butt, it's on both sides of the drum, which I like because I can then adjust with either hand. The snare wires, Tama's super sensitive high carbon snare wires. This will be the only time in life that you'll ever hear me say super sensitive high carbon snare wires. So I'm glad I could share this moment with you. I insisted on Remo heads, a coated ambassador, an ambassador clear on the snare side, and then the beautiful gloss finish, which not only took my breath away, but took me by surprise at how beautiful it was. And wood goes with any drum set. So the idea of this drum is not just that Tama drummers might want to add it to their kit, but that any drummer would want to add it to their kit. Look, the drum set is a creation, a creature, a child of jazz. And we have drum sets because of jazz music, and everything stems from that. Stylistically, rhythmically, I teach this stuff at USC, so I know whereof I speak. And every drummer should have access to not only the type of drum that will help you realize and will relay delicate intricacies, but also has the power when you might want it. I'm going to use one more tune from this Bob Mintzer Big Band app play along here on my iPad. Some of you may have heard me play this before. This has to do with Basie again, and this is called Tribute for your listening and dancing pleasure. Here we go, Tribute. 1, 2, 3. That was fun. Okay. Now, we're doing this uh, kind of like one or two steps removed. The technical issue, I wasn't able to quite get everything streaming directly to YouTube. So this is the Zoom platform uh, going to YouTube, and so I can't see any comments directly. But Sam, I think, is manning the computer and the keyboard on his end, and he might be able to relay or relate some questions or comments if you have any. I'm in a little bit. I'm in a little bit of a bubble. Um, what's new, right, folks? Uh, but I'm not getting feedback. But I hope this is good, and I'm not going to stop and check. Well, maybe I should check this, see if there are any emergency messages here, emails. Uh, wow, Pete, you sound. No, just kidding. Uh, okay. Oh, there we go. Looking at comments, all very positive. That's very nice. I'm going to play something else. If you do have any questions about the drum, uh, uh, but let's see, what else can I say about it? Uh, I feel like when I arrived at Tama's doorstep, I felt like I'd been wandering uh, for many years, not in the desert, through wonderful landscapes and with a lot of varied views. I'm making this up as I'm going along, uh, but I hadn't found home, and home is not just a new sparkling fancy place. Home represents tradition. Home represents comfort, a certain level of safety, and tradition. And that's what I found with Tama drums. I found like wow, and I was quite surprised because I wasn't necessarily. I don't know. Was I looking? Maybe we're always looking for something. Um, but I think it was my wife's comment to me when she heard me play a gig on a Thomas Star kit, and she came up to me afterwards. And she just said, "I I really like the way these drums are making you play," and I felt the same way. And so ever since that time, it's just been a lot of fun. But snare drum wise, I have been trying different drums, and all of them have been great. Um, but I didn't feel like I'd quite uh, landed back home as far as a snare drum went. And this snare drum is that. Um, the only eye towards business, shall we say, uh, was my expressed desire that the drum be as affordable as possible. So when you get to be a certain age, money. I mean, this has been a very challenging time, and the only silver lining is it's allowed us, or many of us at least, to kind of reprioritize. And even though this was the idea before the pandemic really solidified my thinking. And let's you know, what does it matter what when you make a signature drum, you do get a royalty from it. That's the only financial interaction between any drummer and a drum company. Um, but that was the only consideration of that was make it as little as possible, so the drum is as affordable as possible. And this drum will meet that mark. I think you'll all be very surprised by the price. Uh, the quality for the price is just mind blowing. And this drum has an old soul. Having said that, I'm going to play something a little more modern than what was coming out of the Basie book. By the way, I'm using these play along apps that have come into a lot of use where I'm teaching at the Thornton School of Music at the University of Southern California, And a lot of musicians are using these, whether part of their school programs or at home, because it brings the band to you, no matter what instrument you play. But it's certainly fun for drums. And here's something it's kind of out of the Miles Davis book, and based on the Ron Carter tune 81. We call it the straight eighth sus blues. If the balance needs adjusting, let Sam know, and I'll keep an eye on the chat window. Otherwise, I'm gonna change cameras here. And again, for your listening and dancing pleasure, here's a little 81 where you can hear the snare drum. Thank you. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. right, little Bartok shout out there at the end. Uh, Concerto for Orchestra. Okay, so that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I want to thank you all for joining me here. Um, I hope you've gotten a good sense of what the drum can do. I'm going to close with a drum solo because what would a NAMM event be without a drum solo? This drum, I think, will be become available at some point. Well, I'll put it this way: you'll probably get your vaccine before you get the drum, but I think the drum will become available in early summer thereabouts. Um, I hope we've piqued your interest. Tama will be making all these details known and shown for you. We just wanted to introduce the drum to you, and I can let you know that I'm using it for any and all stuff, gigs that I'm doing. Most of my gigs here, I do the occasional gig with Seth MacFarlane. We will be doing an Instagram concert on February 13th. We are all tested twice, and then we stay in our bubble, and then we go work with him, and the entire time we're still wearing masks. Everyone, please stay safe. Practice the social distancing as advised by the health officials. And wash your hands, wear your masks, so on and so forth. So I'm going to stop playing. I'm going to start playing, stop talking, and then I'll sign off. So thanks for your kind attention. Everybody stay safe out there. Thanks for your time.